Santa baby, don't make that song platonic. Man up, Santa, if you're gonna sing it.
Michael Bublé.
Hannah,
Cullen.
you're here where you should be. Snow is falling as the carolers sing. Just wasn't the same alone on a Christmas day.
Mm. Poetry.
But that's from our Christmas queen, Kelly Clarkson. Underneath
Yeah.
the tree.
Yeah, I don't know any of the lyrics, if I'm honest. I do
Wow.
love that song, though. It is a bop.
Is it more of a bop than Descendants Audrey's Christmas Rewind?
Yes. Yes, it
Because
is.
you did say this was your new favorite Christmas song, and I was like, I think she's joking, but it is kind of a bop. I could see her.
It's a bop, but it's not going to make my playlist. Because
Wow.
I can't have any Descendants content in my life. It's just too triggering for me.
Not even Red Christmas, their latest Christmas song.
No, but I did briefly catch it at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and just immediately was like, nope. And I turned around and walked away.
Wow. It's our
Just the
holiday
look of
special.
sheer confusion on one of our guests' face, being like, I don't know any of these words.
I've never seen the Macy's Day Parade, so I was confused by that.
That is the most confusing thing we referenced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so niche.
Well,
Especially for someone who lives so close to New York City, so niche.
You can hear it if I open up the window. I can hear them going down that street over there.
can hear the lip
Oh, damn.
syncing. Yeah. Well, happy holidays, everyone. We are currently recording this on the day after St. Nicholas Day. So we're in the holiday seasons. I got my cat a gift for St. Nicholas Day, and I got Rafa a skibbity toilet thing. Because he lo anything that's an annoying song, he's all about. So he loves skibbity
Love
toilet.
that.
But we're celebrating the holidays, and so it's a real family affair. We have annually returning my sibling Kate.
Hello.
And Hannah's sibling is a little too young to appear on the pod.
Yeah. Can't really
So,
talk at all.
yeah. So I got the closest thing. Our friend, classmate slash Hannah's half nemesis, T,
I believe it's called a friend, arch frenemies.
arch frenemies,
I love that. I love that.
and one of the hosts of Obscure Obsessions.
That's right. I was your first guest. I think I was also your first repeat guest. I came
Yeah.
back to talk about some other movie. I don't remember
And
what.
it was Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast, of course.
Yeah.
How dare I? And it's nice to be back yet again.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
it's nice to see Cullen.
Wow.
you know, it's a real family affair slash a panel of Muppet apologists. Because
If Spotify Wrapped was for Muppets, I think I'd be in the top, what is it? 0.001% of Muppet fans.
yeah, you would be. Yeah. I think T would be too.
I would
mean,
say so, yes.
yeah, we got some real Muppet fans here to talk about the Muppet Christmas Carol. And while I did all this research of this movie, I'm like, wait, what year did this movie come out?
It was the 90s, I think.
1 or 2?
Yeah, 92. Yes. Because
Oh.
It was the first Muppet film after Jim
Jim
Henson's
Henson's
death.
death.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I am in my homemade or home decorated Christmas sweater from Rafa that he got me last year. It has my name on the back.
Oh
In
my gosh, in
tinsel. Yeah.
tinsel.
In
Holy crap.
tinsel. Tinseled up. I mean, my tree is up. You can't see it though, because I'm in the streets of London. I have my gingerbread mug filled with dairy-free eggnog.
Nice. Very festive.
Yeah. And
And healthy.
I have my yeah, it's definitely that's basically a vegetable. And I have the last of my gingerbread batch.
Ooh, what's his name?
I think he's Charlie Brown because he's in a yellow shirt. And
Okay.
his shirt has
Uh-huh.
yellow sprinkles.
So we're back to
Uh,
the time we made gingerbread on your YouTube channel.
My first, not your boy Ryan, the other one. Yeah,
Wow.
Garrett Descendant. I still remember that.
And Kyle XY, or no, somebody didn't have a belly button like Kyle XY.
Yeah,
That was, but I don't remember what his name was.
yeah. Okay, do you wanna show the people your shirt?
Yes. So Cullen got me this for Christmas last year. It says, "I told you storytellers are omniscient. I know everything." And
Amazing.
because Gonzo says that in this movie. And Gonzo as Charles Dickens is like my dream role
Nice.
Yeah,
in both in life and or film.
and you're like when they do the Broadway production of Muppet Christmas Carol, I will be playing Gonzo. I will be lining up. I don't care if my hand's in a puppet or I have to put on that blue nose myself.
Yeah, my top
Amazing.
two roles would be Gonzo as Charles Dickens and John Adams in 1776.
Nice.
Now, before we start, I did want to. This is about a Christmas Carol. What's everyone's favorite Christmas Carol?
Mm. So
Is Hannah about to say Silent Night, her part of her atheist origin story that I made up?
yes. So that's still a classic for me. Uh
Hmm.
and yes, I don't think we've ever talked about on this pod, or maybe we have, but
Hmm.
basically the story goes that when I was a youngster in like church choir, we were gonna sing this song and I was mad that I didn't get the solo. And yes, that's why I became an atheist, not because of all of the myriad other reasons.
Well, then
But
they
yeah,
give you the solo and then they cut it. You were already practicing it.
I think so, something like that. It's so funny that you remember it better than I do. I think again, the trauma, I'm just burying it. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, Silent Night is a classic. I love every time I hear it. That and Oh Holy Night. That one's coming back around for me.
I'm an Oh Holy Night truther.
I heard it, I don't remember who was singing it, but it was a female singer and it was really, really beautiful cover. So I was like, okay,
Hmm.
it's coming back around for me. I think I was so used to Josh Groban's version that I was
Mm.
like, ugh. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm an Oh Holy Night truther. Maybe it came upon a midnight clear.
don't know that one.
Sometimes that one, if in the right arrangement,
Mm.
and of course, like maybe you get like a David Archuleta Christmas song up in there, maybe some Lindsey Sterling,
Are we counting like traditional Christmas songs or what are we?
whatever you want. It could be a song from this
Okay.
movie.
Well, because I'm like, I love a Sufjan cover, a Sufjan Stevens cover of like an older carol, like Come Thou Font of Every Blessing. And then if we're going like newer stuff, like Christmas Killer songs, Great Big
Great
Sled.
Big Sled's a banger.
Yeah.
Yeah. T. What about you?
Well, I kind of liked the opening music in Falling for Christmas. I kind of liked how the song during through the opening credits of that kind of got me into the Christmas mood. I have to confess, I did watch that this year. I know you guys did an episode on that, I think, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, on
On
And
Glee
Gleevoo
Food.
with
and
Lindsay Lohan and Cord Overstreet, who
it
I've
would have been
seen, I
better
don't
with
know.
Hilary Duff, but
Wow.
most movies would be. My favorite Christmas carol is what's the one that goes, Hark the Herald
Hark
Hark
Angels?
the Herald Angel
I kind of
Yes.
like
Sings.
that one.
with
I
the
kind of like.
peanuts going loo loo loo.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
because I just watched that this afternoon. The Peanuts characters. So I can,
Yeah.
but I refuse to sing it for Hannah. I refuse.
You know, that you humming it, takes me back to our days in the writing center
Yeah.
when you would
Remember?
hum things and I'm like, I have no idea what you're trying to hum. And that was a game for us.
Yeah. Hannah would come in all bedeviled looking, and she would say,
Bedeviled.
and she'd say to me, "What are you humming?" I said, "I don't know."
Yeah, you're like, okay, I'm gonna hum a song. And I'm like, that's not a song. And you're like, it's this song. I was like, no, this is how that song should be hummed.
Hannah
And
wants to deny my musical theater capabilities. She doesn't want to admit that I could have been the wolf in Into the Woods had I just
Sure.
gone to that second audition in high school.
But you were party goer number 5 in Pride and Prejudice,
No,
or
I was young man at party number 2.
oh, sorry, sorry for
Want me to give you my
misremembering.
line?
Yeah, please do.
And how you will adorn it, Miss Belinda.
insane.
That was my
Amazing.
line.
You could be in this movie with
It put a
that.
little edge, it put a
Yeah.
little Cockney into it, but it came out a little
Nice.
Southern though. But that was my acting style. I was
Nice.
limited that way.
I was gonna say, I think another like honorable Carol shout out is one that is in this movie, Good King Wenceslas.
Hmm.
I should have done some research on that, but I did not.
Good. Well, that's the one about like the king and he sees like the guy who's like
Yeah,
cold and he takes him in. I think that's what Bean Bunny is singing.
yeah. Well, oh yes, Kate knows the true given Christian names of any and every Muppet. Because I'm like Bunny guy, and they're like, no, Bean Bunny
Well, I know Bean Bunny from the Muppet Vision 3D at at Disney World where
at Disney World.
we had a
R.I.P. Aren't they getting rid of
yeah,
that?
I just heard
Mhm.
about that. Yeah. We had a
Yeah.
relatively where he sets off the fireworks in the end sequence of Muppet Vision 3D.
I didn't see Muppet Vision when I only went to Hollywood Studios once for a half day, and now I regret it because I can never see Muppet Vision.
Well, I have it on DVD. If you want me to send it to you, Cullen, I have a bootleg copy of it that my
Yeah.
cousin Nick made of it. It's a little blurry because it's in 3D,
Amazing.
but I can send it to you.
Keeping media alive,
Yeah.
Yeah.
physical media. So it's safe to say everyone except Hannah has seen Muppet Christmas Carol before. Yeah.
Wow, the silence.
The silence is
Bitter
deafening.
silence.
The silent night is deafening. It's 2:19 p.m. here in Los Angeles. Now
Yeah.
Hannah, explain yourself. Why didn't you see this?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
curious. How could you avoid this for 20 years?
So here's the thing. I did not grow up with the Muppets. I don't even think I could have named a Muppet until I was an adult and like kind of got it through just like pop culture. Neither of my parents were Muppet fans. So they didn't introduce this to me. I didn't even really have friends that was like, hey, let's watch this movie. So I didn't see any like Muppet properties. I remember seeing, clips of Miss Piggy and Kermit. Those are the only two I probably could have named. But yeah, so that's basically it. And then of course, as an adult, I don't have any connection to it, so I've never really sought it out. I'm basically relying on this podcast to do it for me. So, yeah, so this was my very first time seeing this movie.
Yeah.
And it is
Wow.
my first full Muppet property that I've ever seen.
I'm disgusted.
What a
I'm
delight
disgusted.
for you though.
Yeah, honestly, this movie was endlessly fascinating to me because I think I remember hearing stories, and we'll probably get into it, that like Michael Caine like treated these Muppets as the revered performers that they are, like treat them just like the human counterparts that he would have in other films. And I find that super fascinating. But also he is like giving 100,000,000% in this movie.
Where's his Oscar?
Right? Like, and it's just like he is so serious in this role, but in a good way. It doesn't feel like out of place. And that's just so fascinating to me that I think because they're Muppets, I think my first inclination was this is going to be like a lower brow kind of performance from the human actors. No, this was like, this is a film.
Yeah, this
And
is
I appreciate it.
cinema.
I mean,
Yes.
my Victorian lit professor in undergrad famously, someone asked her, what is the best adaptation of A Christmas Carol? And she said, oh, Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I've always thought this, but I now feel very validated because my Victorian literature professor is saying that. But she's not wrong. Like, there's straight up stuff from the book in the dialogue and the lyrics.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I was telling Hannah that like when I was doing like when we do book adaptations, we'll often do like check-ins where it's like, hey, this is kind of roughly the differences between like the book and the movie at this point of the story. And I'm like, there's not really much that's different. Like there's a few
There's like
things that have been
maybe an extra
cut.
Cratchit.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, it's like it's very faithful, especially after like talking about like Wicked, whereas like speed running through like okay, they go to this sex club and they're part of a government conspiracy and blah blah blah. Okay, and now back to the movie. Like this is
Yeah.
very close. This it initially was going to be a very goofy, not an extremely goofy movie
Right.
or a very
Thank
goofy
goodness.
movie, but there's going to be some goofing.
Goofing
uh
around.
goofing around. So produced by Disney and Jim Henson Studios, it was initially pitched as a TV movie, but then they're like, this could be theatrical. People would come to this place for magic. And
Heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
heartbreak feels good in a place like this. So it's gonna be goofy, but then Brian Henson, the director, this was his first feature film he directed, was like, there's no adaptation that really honors the prose of Dickens. Like he's such a great prose writer, and like I want my adaptation to really honor that. So let's put Gonzo as Dickens because he's the most opposite, like he's the last person you would guess that would be Dickens. So it's like a
I mean, in a
subversion.
way.
Yeah, now we're
I
used to
mean,
it, but
I have a counter. The last person I would expect to play Dickens, Miss Piggy.
this is true.
Well, I also think that like we
Or this
have like
guy.
That's
Beaker.
Beaker, Hannah?
Yeah, who doesn't even talk. She goes, beep,
Gonzo
beep.
has gravitas that people sometimes take him for granted for. And I do also think that Charles Dickens has a little bit of a cheeky side. If you read his prose, there's a lot of
Mhm.
cheekiness. And
Yes.
I'm like, I think this is what Charles Dickens would have wanted. I think I wrote in my notes, like, this is both what God and Charles Dickens intended.
Yeah. We don't have time to get into when Hans Christian Andersen was a Nightmare House guest at Dickens'
Oh,
house.
my favorite is Victorian authors and their drama.
So much drama. Uh, Screenplay was by Jerry Hull. Michael Caine as Ebenezer Scrooge, and there's a quote: "I'm going to play this movie like I'm working with the Royal Shakespeare Company. I will never wink. I will never do anything Muppety. I'm going to play Scrooge as if it is an utterly dramatic role and there are no puppets around me."
And he
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. And it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think
Uh,
a meme I get sent about like maybe 5 to 10 times a year is the one that says like Muppet Christmas Carol works because Michael Caine is treating them like other actors, and Muppet Treasure Island works because Tim Curry is a Muppet.
That's
yeah.
true. Yes, that's absolutely true. And you know what
Uh,
else is interesting with this movie is there's certain lines of dialogue that you think comes from Dickens, and when you actually look it up, some of there's that scene where Scrooge sees his younger self age in the schoolhouse, and Gonzo says something about the years perform their terrible dance, which seems like a Dickens line, and that's not actually Dickens. That's from the screenwriters of this movie. They did a very interesting job of blending their own writing with Dickens. It's a very good adaptation, interesting adaptation.
yeah. That's
We should have
wild.
covered this in grad school.
We should have sent
We'll
this
call
to
Debbie right
Debbie.
now.
Yeah. Edward Sanders, Theo Sanders, Christopher Milnes, Russell Martin, and Ray Coulthard played young Scrooge. Steve McIntosh was Fred. Meredith Braun was Belle. Robin Weaver was Clara. So Dave Goelz played Gonzo Dickens, Waldorf/Marley, and Professor Honeydew. So he's right next to Beaker in the behind you, Hannah.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, the
Oh, I
guy with
forgot that
no
not everyone just
eyes.
knows that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I will be trying to point them. Actually, this was a perfect background for me. Be like, okay, this person when they did this, great.
yeah. Uh,
Extremely British Lady Muppet. I don't know what her
Maybe.
actual name is.
Okay, so
uh,
she doesn't have a God-given name. Good to know.
Yeah,
yeah.
no.
Stephen Whitmire as Rizzo, Kermit/Bob Cratchit, and Beaker. So that's me, moo, 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 the guy
Mhm.
next to you. Frank Oz as Miss Piggy/Mrs. Cratchit. Fozzie/Fozziewig, and Sam the Eagle, an animal. Jerry Nelson as Ma Bear, Robin/Tiny Tim, Statler/Marley, and the Ghost of Christmas Past. So, I mean, there's so many more performers that we could get into. There's your Beaker. But those are kind of our leads. And this movie did fairly well financially. It was a modest success. Not as big as they thought, but it was still did well. But it was also like the same year as like Aladdin, so that kind of eclipsed it a bit.
Yeah,
Let's
that's what I was watching instead of Muppet stuff. I was watching Aladdin and The Little Mermaid. I've said it numerous times on
numerous
this
times.
I
podcast.
mean,
Hannah
I
was
so
was
did
so
watching.
busy.
But like I didn't see this in theaters. The first time I saw it was when it was on Disney Channel as like a special, and our mom taped it
Oh.
on VHS.
Yeah,
And it
that's how
was
we
like
used
the
to watch
full
it.
version.
Yeah, I think that's how I saw it on TV for the first time. And I remember being my memory of this movie was being initially very scared of
Yeah.
certain parts
I
of it.
was scared as a kid,
And I
yeah.
remember of the original Muppet movies, this was one that I actually avoided because I was scared of the certain parts of this movie.
We talk about a certain ghost of Christmas past.
Yes, yes, yes.
Terrifying.
Speaking of ghosts, you may have heard of them before from the Ella Henderson song, I Keep Going to the River to
Uh-huh.
Pray, or Justin
Yeah.
Bieber or Katy Perry. They've all introduced the concept of ghosts before.
Mhm.
But ghosts, that's a spirit, an entity. Sometimes it's the spirit of a dead person.
Jennifer Love Hewitt
Oh
Yeah,
my
telling us.
gosh. Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze. Yeah. So ghost stories are a Christmas thing, and this is according to everyone's dad's favorite TV channel, History Channel. Uh, People would tell ghost stories around the fire at night at this time of year because it was dark and you couldn't work on the farm or,
And Sheep and Scrooge liked it.
yeah. I mean, people didn't have electric lighting, so you had to go home and sit by the fire and people would tell ghost stories. This where we get that song, and scary ghost stories of
Hate that
Christmases
song.
long, long ago. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so in the Victorian era, there was like a romantic Christmas rebirth due to the genocidal influencer, Queen Victoria. People wanted to harken back to the older traditions. Christmas trees were coming in. There was like people were kind of modern Christmas was forming its identity at this time.
Because
Uh,
this is also like the first secular Christmas story that's not focused on Jesus.
Well, so there were a lot of ghost stories that were popular, and then because of the printing press, a lot of people were selling Christmas stories at the time. And a lot of them had ghosts. And Dickens even wrote a few, including one where like a sexton is haunted by goblins that get him to like become a better person. So he was playing with this idea. Now, ghost stories and the supernatural with Christmas that didn't take off in America. In America, Christmas remained happy, sweet, not spooky. Because American culture was just more secular and they looked on ghosts, goblins, spirits as superstition, old world tomfoolery. Like we don't play with that. Also, because we had Halloween for that. Halloween was becoming big and they're
Ooh.
like, that's the ghosts have Halloween. Christmas is for spending time with your family. Like that kind of uh,
Warm
ghosts are
and
for
fuzzy.
warm and fuzzy. Yeah, fuzzy wig. But then so around that time we get Christmas Carol. So it was part of this big Christmas zeitgeist. It was a huge hit for Dickens, become part of like the Christmas canon, and helped
Was this
set.
serialized like some of his other work?
No,
No, it's
it
a
was
novella.
yeah. So it was released
Okay.
all in one. And people complained that the way it was printed was a little too expensive, so some people couldn't afford it.
Mm.
Um, Huge hit. It helps set the tone for Christmas literature going forward, including the ideas of family, festivity, as well as charity, forgiveness, and redemption. Also connecting Christmas with urban areas, whereas before Christmas, like many holidays and old world romantic folksy traditions, were associated with rural life, whether it was like the villages, the manor house. Now this was bringing Christmas to the modern urban industrial world. It's very similar to like a red Starbucks cup because it very much was criticized for being too secular or like where people complain where do the Cratchits get their food? If they got it, that means someone else doesn't have it. Others did read it as like a religious allegory. There was a redemption arc and references to Christian charity. So it kind of towed the line, as a lot of Christmas media does, between these two, a secular and a spiritual aspect of Christmas. As I said in our Halloween episode, if a holiday's not slutty or spiritual or both, I don't want it. Uh,
Christmas is all of those.
Christmas is all of those. Yeah, Santa baby, don't make that song platonic. Man up and fuck Santa if you're gonna sing it. The book was
Michael
a
Bublé.
the book was a huge hit in Britain and the US, published in 1843, 162 years before the release of Chicken Little.
Wow.
Uh, Charles Dickens, in case you weren't aware, English novelist, journalist, short story writer, social critic. You read him a lot in school in English speaking countries. Great Expectations, Tale of Two Cities, A Christmas Carol, uh, Dombey
Oliver
and
Twist.
Son, Oliver Twist. What was that one that I liked? Hard Times.
Mm.
Uh, yeah,
I
I
did
liked.
not like Tale of Two Cities, I can tell you that.
I do like that one, but the musical is very much a Les Mis ripoff,
I
Mm.
though it
mean,
does have
I
a
think
banger
I
ending.
like Christmas Carol the best.
Yeah. I went through a Dickens phase, but I have not read all of his work, and I don't think he treated his wife very well. So
No,
shame,
that
shame,
was,
shame.
yeah.
So here we are. We're gonna do our classic plot check-ins, where we're gonna talk about this movie and we'll do occasional check-ins with what was going on in the book at this time. But we start in London, meeting Gonzo and Rizzo around singing vegetables, cats.
Okay, have you watched this with the subtitles on?
I do have the subtitles on, I think.
Okay, because this opening scene with the subtitles on, you can kind of like see more of what people are saying. There's like a guy who's like, "Help! Hey, help me! I'm being stolen." There's like a cabbage who's being stolen.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so they're talking about like, oh, we're gonna visit Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. And Rizzo's like, what do you know about Charles Dickens? He's like, I am Charles Dickens. I wrote this story. He's like, well, tell me the story. He's like, I know it like the back of my hand. And then he starts describing his hand. He's like, no, not your hand. Tell me the story.
I do feel like one of the things that works really well with like the Gonzo and Rizzo like narrative framing is that you have Gonzo to give us like the text, but also like Rizzo is like the audience slash like a kid hearing this the first time.
Yeah.
Because like Rizzo has the questions that like my students often have, or that like most kids would have about like, wait, why is this happening? Or how is this going on? And I think that's like helps as like a window for an audience into a story.
Hmm. Yeah. What was it? Book of Life, right? Also had that where
Oh,
like
Christina
that's
Applegate. Yeah.
yeah, so she was sort of our narrator, and then the kids would like pipe up and ask questions. So yeah, it's sort of a very similar structure to that too.
Yeah. I also feel like this is like T and Hannah. Like Hannah's trying to tell the story, and T's like, what do you know about this story?
Yeah,
Well, Rizzo
no.
does at one point say something about Joyzy. I heard him say that
Yes.
And he says
I
he's from
thought
New
that,
Jersey.
yeah,
at
and I
one
was like, oh my
point.
God, it is tea.
Uh, so we get he's like, oh look, here he comes, and we get here comes Mr. Humbug, here comes Mr. Scrooge. We used to sing the line all the time, and I still think whenever a cold wind blows, I think of the opening when the cold wind blows, it
Those that
chills
chills
you
you.
Chills you
And then the
too.
to
lady
the
who's like,
bone.
there's nothing in nature that freezes your heart. The extremely British lady. Like, I don't know how they like were like, yes, we need this British lady Muppet because she just like has that energy.
She
Um,
British.
yeah. I was also gonna say like the description of him in the lyrics is pretty sure straight from the book, for the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
I was also gonna say, I think one of my other favorite parts in the song is like when there's like the choir of ladies saying like, "Oh, he must be misunderstood," and I'm like, "This is the Tumblr choir of like,
So
he's
like
just misunderstood.
maybe
I
his
can fix
mom
him."
maybe his mom was killed by Dalmatians.
Yeah.
It's justified for him being so horrible.
Yeah, but they're like, no. But Scrooge, I think it's important to point out, Scrooge is not the Grinch. He doesn't
Yeah.
just like a loner who hates Christmas because of the noise. He's someone who is in society and is taking advantage and leeching off of other people and has no charity. And he does not like Christmas because it distracts from financial gain. People are spending money on feasts. And he believes in no
Jesus for
cheeses for
Mises.
us Mises. Yeah. And he's always raising the rent. He's a landlord.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh,
In the book, it also like describes like the cold following him wherever he goes.
yeah.
And the only difference between like him and Rain and Snowfall is that Rain and Snowfall sometimes comes down handsomely. And I'm like, the sass, Dickens.
Like, you suck and you're ugly. Uh, and so but yeah, so Scrooge is not the Grinch, not even the Matthew Morrison Grinch. Uh,
I
which
forgot that
Yeah.
happened. God, why?
Why did you
I
remind
was
us?
because people were talking about like their Nightmare Wicked cast, and I was like doing something at work, and people were talking about it next to me, and they're like, "Who's Matthew Morrison?" And I was like, "Sorry to interrupt, but Matthew
But I
Morrison,
used to have a Glee podcast.
Matthew Morrison is the teacher on Glee. He's also was in that Grinch Live. Didn't he fart in that? That was a rough time for us. So Scrooge gets to the office. We meet Bob Cratchit, played by Kermit the Frog, and the rat bookkeepers. They're asking for another coal for the fire. How would they like to be suddenly unemployed?
This is also when like they're trying to see in and he's like, "Oh, this is a really dirty city," and he uses Rizzo to like clean off the window and he's like, "Thank you for making me a pot of this." And that's something we say a lot too.
Yeah. And we also meet not cousin, nephew, Freddie.
Fun fact about the actor who plays him is then he goes on to he's the bad dad in the Elton John biopic.
I was
Wow.
like, that guy looks so
Ooh.
familiar. Yes.
Because when
Wow.
I saw the Elton John biopic, I was like, "What else have you been in?" And I was like, "Nephew Freddie, how could you?"
Yeah, he's so me. I've always
Yeah, I wrote that in my
identified with
notes.
him. I did when I was in the It's a Wonderful Life play, I auditioned with his little speech here. But he comes in and he's like, Scrooge, come over for Christmas dinner. And he's like, no, I hate Christmas. Bah humbug. What a waste of money. You're too poor. Why did you get married? And he's like, because I fell in love. And he has I think the I say Christmas has done me good and will do me good. And I say, God bless it. Scrooge is like, get out of my face. But the charity workers come in, played by Beaker and Bunsen Honeydew.
Bunsen Honeydew.
And he's like, oh, put him down for a large sum. But Scrooge is like, yeah, no, I'm not donating. And this is the one I did pick up this dialogue from the book. So in the movie, he says, "Are there no prisons or poorhouses?" And Honeydew is like, "Some of them would rather die." And he's like, "If they're gonna die, they better do it and decrease the surplus population." Words from Congressman Scrooge. And so, so in the book, the line is at the workers are saying at this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute who suffer greatly at the present time. Many th thousands are in want of common necessaries. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir. And Scrooge says, "Are there no prisons?" "Plenty of prisons," said the gentleman, laying down the pen again. "And the union workhouses?" demanded Scrooge. "Are they still in operation?" "They are still," returned the gentleman. "I wish I could say they were not." "The treadmill and the poor law are in full vigor then?" said Scrooge. "Both very busy, sir." "Oh, I was afraid from what you said at first that something had occurred to stop them in their useful course," said Scrooge. "I'm very glad to hear it." "Under the impression that they can scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind or body to the multitude," returned the gentleman, "a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. We choose this time because it is a time of all others when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for?" "Nothing," Scrooge replied. "You wish to remain anonymous?" "I wish to be left alone," said Scrooge. "Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I've mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there." Many can't go there, and many would rather die. If they would rather die, said Scrooge, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population.
Yeah,
So,
that's like straight from the book.
yeah, both an example of how like it is different dialogue, but incredibly similar. Uh,
I mean, he does say he can't afford to make idle people marry in
yeah.
the movie. Yeah.
And the poor law, that's a reference to the economic theories of Thomas Malthus. Malthus argued that ruinous poverty and starvation were necessary ills a society could not possibly provide for everyone, and death would remove the undesirables from the population. He supported the poor law to create workhouses for the poor, as people who were unable to sustain themselves did not have the right to live.
Hmm.
Uh,
Sounds like Republican Party.
Yeah, well, so this is where a lot of economic ideologies between the left and the right that exist today were kind of formed. And so people are in this country hoping to invoke some of these kind of ideologies between people like Thomas Malthus or Adam Smith or, create workhouse. So like people who can't afford to work and sustain their own lives, they shouldn't live. The treadmills that Scrooge references, those were like places where criminals had to like push a mill all day with only like a few minutes of break. And it was like to
I
scare
mean,
people who saw it.
we basically voted to keep that allowed in California.
Yeah.
And
So,
but I feel like that's like one of the things that like a lot of Charles Dickens' work was about is like talking about like these are problems in society that we should do something about.
yeah. And that's why it remains relevant today, even if you put a singing bunny in it.
Hmm.
Because up next, Beaker and Honeydew are shocked. And then there's a singing bunny singing Good King Wenceslas. And then he's like, "Penny for a song, sir?" And he's got the door slammed in his face.
And then the wreath that Freddie brought thrown
Yeah,
at him.
chucked at him. I was
Yeah.
like, damn.
Or Bean Bunny. I also, this is very tangential, but Freddie's pants are really cool, and I did write that down. And I
Clocking
wrote
the
down that
fashion
like,
choices.
yeah, somewhere there's like a Venn diagram of like Victorian's men's fashion. In the middle would be like Muppets and Hobbits, and then like non-binary trans masks is in the other part.
Uh, Scrooge leaves, after they ask, "Hey, can we at least have Christmas off?" Which he gives as custom. He's so Hobby Lobby coded. And then they sing "There's only one more sleep till Christmas."
A bop.
But meanwhile, Scrooge isn't having such a jolly time. He goes home
Did we
to
talk about the penguin skating party though?
there's penguin skating, and I prefer them to
Straight from Dickens. Come
the
on.
Happy Feet penguins.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, because the Happy Feet was a very depressing movie. I feel like last time I saw it.
I was also going to say because at the end of that song is when we have Kermit looking at the star, and then as he's going, that's when you see that Bean Bunny is homeless and shivering on the street.
mm,
Homeless
yeah.
Bunny. Yeah.
They seem to like to beat up on poor Bean Bunny in the various projects I've seen Bean Bunny show up in. He's either being thrown out of things, tossed into the street, he's being thrown out of theaters. I always felt bad for Bean Bunny.
Well, I
That's
also feel
just
like we have this of like Kermit going home. Like Bob Cratchit, we know is not like well off, but like he at least has a job. But then like he's going home, and then you see Bean Bunny, and that like juxtaposition is really like showing you what the reality is for some of these people. And then Scrooge is going to his house.
Yeah. Landlord Scrooge. He goes home and the knocker. This part always scared me as a kid when the knocker turns into the face of a Marley because the Marleys were dead.
To
That's the
begin with.
opening lines. Yeah, dead to begin
The
with.
one fact you must remember, nothing that follows will seem wondrous. And he's like, why are you whispering? It's for dramatic
Uh, and he goes home and he's getting spooked and eventually appearing, played by Waldorf and Statler, the curmudgeons, are Marley and Marley. Ooh.
It's also when we get like the darkness was cheap and Scrooge liked it line, which is from the book, but I just,
We say that a lot, yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
And this is also when he's like, "How do you know what's going on in there?" And he's like, "I told you, storytellers are omniscient. I know everything."
oh yeah, and then they're like trying to get over the fence, and then they like
Yeah, and the
throw each
jelly beans.
other. Rizzo leaves the jelly bean bag and then goes to
Uh,
get it.
he
God
yeah,
save
he
my little broken
climbs through
body.
it.
He's like,
This
you
is
Yeah.
can fit
why,
through those
like,
bars.
Gonzo and Rizzo in this movie are very also me and Maddie coded because, like, I did get her a shirt that says "God save my little broken body."
And something I remember hearing is that their relationship is very similar to the Muppeteers who portrayed them. That relationship between Steve Whitmire and David Goles was reflected in the characterizations of Gonzo and Rizzo. That they kind of would tease each other like that because I don't remember at what point, but at a certain point, maybe it was this movie that Gonzo and Rizzo became paired up because it wasn't Rizzo didn't
No,
come around until Muppets Take Manhattan. He was rather a late
Yeah,
addition to the Muppets. And in recent years, he's been kind of supplanted by other characters. And one of the reasons I loved this movie as well as Treasure Island was because of Rizzo and Gonzo's relationship, and in a way that's so identifiable in that scene where he says, you're such an idiot, and they try
yeah.
to get through
and then he just
the
like
bars.
kisses his nose.
Yeah,
There, you can tell there's ad-libbing and that because
yeah,
it's not like they tell the joke and wait for the other to respond. Like they're so quick. They, yeah, I think
Hmm.
it's like you can read a natural relationship. And this movie and Muppet Treasure Island are very spiritually similar in that it's like,
yeah.
hey, adaptation of British literature with Gonzo and Rizzo and the lead.
Hmm. I
Um,
also think this scene where like Scrooge is starting to be haunted is where you start to like we haven't fully empathized with him, but you kind of like are seeing things from his perspective. And I think Michael Caine does a good job of that when he's like, "Oh no, it's my best dressing gown." Like it's not like anything.
I
And you're
can
just like, okay.
Scrooge eating by himself is very like when people film those old people in public eating by themselves and they like play Billie Eilish in the background. When did I know her? And it's like you don't they could just be old and having dinner by themselves, but like we kind of project this like they're alone.
Although in this movie they changed the food that he eats, because in the book he eats gruel, which is some kind of like low. The idea was that Scrooge was so cheap that he ate the most basic kind of
Hmm.
like sub porridge, and this is eating cheese, and that always bothered me. That was my one criticism of the movie, is that they changed gruel to cheese. Because he's like eating antipasto in his room, and that
Yeah.
always disturbed me. Like, where's the gruel at?
Where's the gruel? Where's the beef?
And then he
Uh
says there's more of gravy than of grave about you.
yes.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Because
That
Dickens did do puns in
Yeah.
his work, and then to have Statler and Waldorf point that out, that's one of those great moments in that movie of where the Muppets so strangely blend and so obviously blend with Dickens. You would never think that those two would blend, and yet that's a moment that so clearly makes those two blend.
That's why I feel like not everything has to be a Muppet adaptation, but like there's certain things that work really well. Charles Dickens.
Yeah. And so yeah, the ghosts show up, Marley and Marley with their chains, and they warn him that, we only cared about money, so now we're bound in shackles because we evicted the orphans and like we were selfish, we didn't care of the needy. So it's like you're gonna be haunted by three ghosts or you're doomed for all time. Like listen to them. And this is our first check-in. We've referenced the book quite a bit, but
And
the beginning is basically the same. There's just a little bit more about like multiple spirits being bound by chains and that they witness human suffering. Like they see a homeless woman and her child on the street, but they're
Yeah.
unable to help. And because they didn't help when they could have when they were alive.
I was
Um,
also gonna say though, the special effects of like that make Waldorf and Statler look transparent holds up pretty well. Like I do remember not really getting that on the VHS copy, and I didn't really notice it until like watching it as an adult. But I'm like, yeah, the special effects for them like hold up well.
Yeah.
yeah. I think everything just very like because it's like the Muppet world, like everything very much like fits in its own like internal logic. And then the other thing is Scrooge references in the book to recognizing some of the other trapped spirits of like people he worked with. Basically, his LinkedIn network is linked up, is in chain link. Hi, Sid.
No, this is Edgar.
Oh, Edgar. So Christmas passed. First ghost shows up.
Terrifying.
Gary.
I do also
Literally
like how
so
Rizzo's
scary.
like, should we be concerned about the kids in the audience? And Gonzo's like, nah, this is culture. And I
Yeah.
do, as a kid, I was like, this is funny, but I don't know why. But as an adult, I'm like, he's right. It's okay.
I don't know, do you feel okay after witnessing that baby doll ghost?
No, I'm not okay.
That's
As
the
an
part that
adult,
scared me the most always. That little floating.
She also like in like the remastered. I don't know. I every time I watch it, I feel like they must have remastered it or something because it looks even more scary than I remembered it as a kid.
yeah, like her eyes are like ice blue and her face, it just so creepy. Unnecessary, but whatever.
That ghost, she never scared me, so guess I'm cooler.
Was it
Okay,
Grim
moving
Reaper
on.
that scared you?
Yeah, it was Grim Reaper. It was
What?
honestly, but it was more when the door knocker.
Oh,
I was always
Why
interesting.
the
so
door?
Was
scared
scared.
for the door knocker.
Jump scare?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I famously don't like jump scares.
Famously.
I have a friend who invited me to a Krampus haunted house, and I was like, you know what? No. I already did Knott's Berry Farm this year, Scary Farm for Alyssa, and I can't. As I say, haunted houses are all about the edging, not about the climax, and I'm just not about that life. Uh, so Christmas past, this little doll child is like, let's take you back to when you were in school. And he starts immediately saying hi to all his old friends, and she's like, okay, you
Which is so
idiot.
cute.
It's so cute, but she's like, they can't hear you. Like, they
It's
can't see
also
us.
crazy that he even remembers their names.
Well, I feel like everything's coming back to him, and like
Yeah.
it's kind of
Like
like when
Celine
he starts
Dion.
seeing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all coming back to him now. But
No.
like
Well, I
he,
remember your name, Hannah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I made an impact on you.
Maybe those kids made an impact on that part. Yeah, that and what something else that happens in that scene is there is that also real emotion that is throughout the story, and particularly in that part where he sees his younger self and all that. You don't expect that when you start to watch a movie where there's a talking tomato or a talking cabbage. You don't. That's not the first thing. You don't expect pathos
Uh,
from
I
that
don't
from a
know.
movie.
I saw Veggie Tales.
yeah. But like I
The
was
three
gonna
of us were
say,
primed for that.
I do also like how when they ride with the ghost, Gonzo's like, "This is great," and Rizzo's like, "No."
No.
And then there's
Yeah.
like the cat, and he's like, "No, I've been through too much. I'm from New Jersey."
Oh, well, I love the part where they're flying through the sky before they go to the past, and Rizzo is hanging underneath,
Uh-huh.
like acknowledging the fact that they're flying through the air, and he's screaming. It was something about like "mommy" or something like that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the chicken, and he's like, "Rizzo, this is Louise," and he's like, "Yeah, we've met."
Yeah, so we're in the schoolhouse. We talk about the years dancing on because he spends Christmas alone working on his studies. And he
I do
gets
also like when it says he's connected with 1,000 odors because it's like, yeah, your smell memory reconnects faster than any other type of memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like all these busts that Rizzo and Gonzo are hiding under. And that's
Muppet
as
Shakespeare.
yeah, that's where we get
Mhm.
Sam the Eagle coming in as the headmaster. And he's like, you're going to start your apprenticeship. And he's like, yes, headmaster. And he's like, business. He's like, it is the American way. And like the stage direction, it is the
Sam.
British way.
I do also like, I didn't notice this before as a kid. I just noticed that you whisper to him, but you hear Gonzo be like,
Uh, and so he's like, okay, you're gonna be an apprentice. So we fast forward to his apprenticeship at Fozziwig's Rubber Chicken Factory, which is just
Fozzie Wig and Mom.
Fozziwig and Mom.
yes.
And they don't. they just Rubber Chicken Factory is never really made to be a joke. It's just like matter of fact, like yes, she's apprentice at the Rubber
Michael
Chicken
Caine says it
Factory.
so seriously that you're just like, great. Like I feel like that's what makes it work and you don't question it because he just like says it as if like he's talking about like I'm apprenticeship to like something else. Like he says it so matter of factly.
He's the Fozziwig party is a banger. Ma is like enough speeches, let's dance. Everyone's dancing.
I do like when Animal yells at everyone to be quiet.
Yeah.
For the speech. Yeah. And
And then he shreds on the drum set.
Because he was just playing like demurely to playing the triangle. Like,
Yeah. And then he just drum solos.
Scrooge is like, this holiday party is too expensive. Like, how are we gonna afford it? And Fozziwig is just like, enjoy the holidays, enjoy the party. Oh, and meet my niece, this human woman.
Everyone's making an appearance today. This is Levi. Hi, bud.
Hi, Levi. And he's like, oh, this is Belle.
Mm.
Uh, and so he's like, oh, and there's a spark between them. But Scrooge gets a little wistful because as we jump ahead, we jump to where they're talking about, the finances of their marriage.
he's like,
Uh,
don't show me this Christmas. No.
Yeah.
they didn't get on the episode where they could choose a wedding of that show where you could choose a wedding or a house. They didn't
Oh
even get
yeah, wedding
there.
or I was also gonna say last year when I was watching this with some of my friends, everyone was like, young Scrooge is like masked lesbian coded. Why is this man so pretty?
Fluffy hair. Yeah. She is just like, you're always putting it off another year. Like you're supposed to have your own firm now. And he's just like, more money, more problems. And she's like, I think it's done. And we get the
She's gotta go her
song.
own way.
She's got to go her own way, as Gabriella would say. And she sings When Love Is Gone. Now, did you watch the version with When Love Is Gone, Hannah?
I don't think so. Because I
She's
watched it on
rolling his
Disney
eyes.
Plus.
Well, you have
Yeah.
to go
Well,
into the
yeah.
extras and click full version, which is interesting because, as I said, the one that we had taped from TV had the song in it. And I didn't know that it was usually cut until like we were watching like a DVD version that we had.
Huh.
And then it just like cuts to Gonzo and Rizzo crying. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Why am
Yeah.
I supposed to be crying right now?
Because in my DVD version, the one that I own, they have the widescreen, but the widescreen doesn't include the When Love Is Gone, but you have to watch the full screen version to see Love Is Gone. But who wants to watch full screen? You want to watch widescreen. So
Right.
yeah, I don't know when that because when I saw it on TV the first time, I'm almost positive it had the full version on there.
So they
Yeah,
had the full cut, and Jeffrey Katzenberg was like,
always. Why is it always
the
him?
man who wanted to cut part of your world was like, we're gonna cut this. But Hannah, I encourage you to. I realized as I was getting ready, I forgot to remind you
Gotta
because I
watch
put
the
it in
song with
the
the girl with the
email.
nostrils.
In your email, you even said to watch the full version.
I
Guess
did.
what? I
How
don't
could
have
you
to
not
read
have read
the
your own
emails
email, Hannah?
because I wrote the template. Cullen is
It's a
so
good template.
wonderful at, thank you. Cullen is so good at sending those to the guests. The only thing I look at is the date and time 17 times before we record because it's like, wait, is it this time or this time? And then I look, I'm like, okay, I
I
did
know it's like
not
we've
check.
we've never
And
really like knock
we've
on
never
wood
had to do that.
missed a recording,
Right.
but
But
like
we've
I
also
feel
never
like
had to
we
specify watch
yeah
this version.
yeah
So that's also like it's pretty rare.
yeah, but we've never missed a
Yeah,
recording yet. We're always scared. We're like forgot what time we're supposed to record.
Always.
Yeah.
this is like my big soapbox every year. Me and like my friend
There are dozens of
Maggie
us.
got
Yeah.
yeah, who like every year we're like, this you have to watch this because it has the emotional resonance because Michael Caine duets with her. And this is the part where
Oh,
I always start crying
Yeah.
because like
She's this woman with nostrils, right? People point that out, but she sings this she sings this song When Love Is Gone about how, it was almost love, it was almost always, it was like a fairy tale, but she's just like, I look into your eyes and I realize that like this is done. Like the love is gone. And
And
then
like there's a
my
reprise of it at the end
Yeah.
too, which is why it's like why it's important.
so then
Oh, the
my
Um,
reprise. The reprise
When
isn't in
the
the
you're
reprise
version I
is in
watched
your
either.
version because that scene right behind you, that's where they're reprising it.
yeah, but don't they call it when
Yeah,
love is
I was
found?
like, I thought this was just like, oh, it's the song of them coming together. That
Yeah.
makes more sense that it is a reprise.
And
Got it.
so Michael
because it's
Caine,
where you see him start to change.
because he duets with her about because this is obviously like his greatest regret. So it's a very it's a heart toucher. It's a sad moment.
A lot of times I end up showing this at school, like when there's extra time during finals week, because there's always time where it's like we're in school, but we don't need to be learning anything because the grades are done. And in 2019, like the first time I showed it, I wrote it down. This is from a student. His name was Bernie. He's now in college, but he said, "Bro, she just broke up with you in song form."
The most
Yeah,
devastating kind of breakup.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, "Bro, that is brutal."
Yeah. Yeah, like if someone's rapping at you, they're angry. But if they're singing a sad ballad, like they've made their peace with the relationship, they're moving on. Yeah. Dear John, baby. Yeah.
Someone else will appreciate her watermelon coat.
Yeah. So this is where like, our check-in. So the book, again, very similar. Scrooge, though, does we do meet his sister Fran, and she references their basically abusive father. She's like, "Oh, Dad's so kind now. Like sometimes he'll read to me before bed, and he won't even be angry." So there's a reference that they come from a unstable home. And she's like, he's even allowing you to come home for Christmas and spend time with us. So he has this sweet sister. Because we learned that he spent a lot of his Christmases at school alone, reading A 1001 Nights, or Robinson Crusoe. This ghost reminds him that Fran died and has a son who reaches out to him and he ignores. He also
So Fran's son is
Fred.
Freddie.
yeah.
Okay.
And the ghost also, or when Scrooge sees the boys playing and sees his lonely self, he wishes that he had given the boy singing the carol a coin.
Hmm. Gotcha.
And so he's taken to the it's still a rubber chicken factory. He's taken to Fozziwig's party, and he looks at the merriment, and they say, oh, Fozziwig treated us so well. Fezziwig, not Fozziwig, Fezziwig. And
It's so
he's
close though.
yeah, it really was so easy for them. And this ghost mentions that it wasn't that expensive. It was a small generosity, but it still meant a lot to him, didn't it? And he's like, yeah, I guess it did. They also we see, the breakup. But we also visit her home on the night Marley died. And we see that she's a happy woman with children, a husband. She's has like there's music and fun. Like she has a lovely home. And her husband is like, guess who I fucking saw in the street today in the window? And she's like, who? Scrooge. And she's like, oh my gosh, Scrooge. And he's like, yeah. Isn't his partner dying and he's still at work? Like that man's alone in the world. And she's mostly nice, but she's like, yeah. And so he's seeing him be dragged in front of his ex by his ex's new man and looking at her life and like her beautiful daughter and being like, oh, I could have had this wonderful life, but I chose money and now they're making fun of me.
Wow. I mean, that they do kind of have that in the movie. I also part of me wonders if like because Scrooge like as a kid like didn't have control over a lot of what was going on.
Yeah.
Money and business was a way to like regain control.
Which is
Uh,
something that happened to Dickens, where his father was financially irresponsible. And so he had to leave school and work in a shoe factory in like terrible conditions. And so he like saw both sides of the coin.
mhm.
Um, and so kids probably knew many people who reacted to that trauma in the way Scrooge did. Again, fairly faithful adaptation. We get back to the movie. It's in the present. Come in and know me better, man. He sees the big jolly ghost.
Oh yeah, better man. That's what I think
of Christmas present, and he takes him to Christmas Day to the streets of London. It's in the singing of the street corner choir. It's getting home and getting warmed by the fire. Wherever you find love, it feels like Christmas.
Also a bop. Also, have you ever seen like those illustrations of like the Ghost of Christmas Present and where he has like the sexy deep V robe
Yeah,
again?
they're like Christmas, a little slutty.
Uh-huh. I
The,
think
the,
what's really interesting about this ghost is that Scrooge is very chummy with him. And like people in the real world are like, especially like his nephew tries to be chummy with him and he just does not reciprocate. But like with this ghost, like he jokes with him because the ghost is like, oh yeah, I had like 1,200 brothers and sisters or whatever that came before me. And he's like, oh, imagine the grocery bills. And they're like, ah ha ha ha. And I'm like, this is a changed man already.
What's
Yeah,
interesting
he's like, I'm
is
a
if
little absent-minded spirit too. When he's like, no, I'm a
Yeah.
large absent-minded spirit.
Yes.
if you
Yeah.
watch different adaptations of A Christmas Carol, which I do, it's fun to watch to see in which versions where does Scrooge start to make that change. And
Uh-huh.
sometimes it's not until the Christmas future, and sometimes it's sort of midway through the Christmas present. But this one, yeah, he seems to like they seem to like bond almost immediately.
I
Well,
I
and he
mean he
says
had
like, I don't think I've ever understood about Christmas. So
Yeah.
like, I want
yeah.
to.
He
Yeah.
and the Christmas present has this infectious joy. And I think he also is trying to cheer himself up because I mean, he tells the ghosts of the of past, like, why do you let delight in torturing me? You know, because it's like he's seeing like his greatest mistake, his greatest regret. And so he's like, okay, like, I guess I need to change my ways. And yeah, he's just so jolly. And if you get this jolly song, wherever you find love, it feels like Christmas. It's the summer of the soul in December. Yeah, everyone's dancing along. He takes him around, he takes him to his nephew's house to the party.
Another
Uh
place where he can be dragged
yeah,
behind closed
Yeah.
doors.
he's
I
being
also have to say, Ghost of Christmas Present, as a kid, I thought, is he Santa Claus because he
Mm,
has red hair like in
right.
Santa
like
Claus is
Chris
Coming to Town?
Kringle,
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
an
but also
adaptation.
like this character is very Tom Bombadil coded.
There's an adaptation of A Christmas Carol from the 1970s that's animated. And in that version, at the end of the Christmas present, he changes into red clothes, and you
Mm,
realize that he's actually supposed to be Santa Claus. And I also, as a
Interesting.
kid, always thought, well, he's got a big beard, he looks kind of jolly, and I always sort of in my mind rewrote that. Oh no, he's Santa Claus. He's just not telling Scrooge about it.
Yeah.
I made a fan fiction in my mind
You
about
made
it.
a fan fiction in
sort
your
of head
mind.
I mean,
canon.
there are
Head
like
canon.
headcanons that like, and they were roommates about Scrooge and Marley as well, because he
Yeah, right.
lives in his old house.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so the nephew is also so me because I would do this where they're like playing a guessing game and he's like they're trying to guess, oh, is it an unwanted creature? And then it turns out to be his Uncle
The
Ebenezer
frogs that he's
Scrooge.
friends with, I'm like, who are these guys?
Yeah.
He's a friendly guy who meets people and he doesn't mind dragging his mean relative a little bit for fun and
I do also
games. And I'm
like
like,
when
ooh, it's one of those like Glinda, like it's a mirror and I don't always like what I see, but I can accept it.
I also like when Chris is eating the fruit and he's like, that's wax, right? And he's like, oh, that would explain the texture.
Uh yeah, so he's like, oh, he's like hurt by that. He's like, I don't want to see this.
You
And that
see the look on his face of like absolute devastation, and it's like you could have gone to this party because he's trying to play along. I'm just like,
Yeah.
let Scrooge play a game. I think it's just like also the way Michael Caine plays him that you're just like, I'm like, team, please get a redemption arc so you can play a little parlor game.
Right. Yeah.
then we go to the Cratchits. We see Mrs. Cratchit sneaking some nuts. Miss Piggy, we love her. She's a queen. We see like all the children. We see Peter, we see Belinda and Bettina, and we see he's coming. Tiny Tim and Kermit are coming home, but Rizzo is like falling down the chimney, landing on the goose, going ha 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 ha.
He says, "I knew you weren't suited for literature."
Yeah. So, Gonzo and Rizzo are doing shenanigans, but we get Tiny Tim coming home, and Kermit tells Kermit, Bob Cratchit, played by Kermit, tells his wife, oh, like she's like, how was he at church? And he's like, oh, he was good as gold. He said he wanted people to see him in church to remember that Christ made the lame walk and the blind see. Tiny Tim is so excited for the goose. He's getting all worked up. The goose, the goose. And they're like, just calm down, don't get too excited. So they're having a small feast for quite a large family. And it's like, and Tiny Tim sings God Bless Us All, you
Always gotta
know.
have Robin sing a song.
Yeah. And they're all happy to have each other. It's just a holiday of warmth and light, but they also reference he wants to toast to the founder of the feast, Mr. Scrooge. And
Founder of the feast, indeed, which makes me think of the Queen of Narnia, indeed, of all the chic.
yeah, the Miss Piggy is not having, she's like, I guess, even though he is ill-tempered and badly dressed.
When that happens and the kids are like, "Oh no, too far."
But I mean, she's I think she has every right to drag him. Uh it's like she's got to take care of that house on that meager salary. She's working wonders. She's got to maintain that perm. She's Miss Piggy. She's used to a certain lifestyle. So
Like, have you seen the clip of her and Martha Stewart
oh
like
yeah.
doing like Christmas
I have.
decorations? And she's like, "Oh
So I
wow,
know
how
Tina.
tedious." Or
Yeah.
I
She's like,
have.
or she's like
I ate my dinner watching it.
she's like, okay, you got to put that there. And she's like, oh, of course you would. She's dragging Martha
it's so
Stewart.
funny.
She's always Miss Piggy is so funny in interviews. There Scrooge is worried about Tiny Tim, which is just so rich because Tiny Tim's medical care is paid for with Bob Cratchit's tiny salary.
Well, I mean, I don't think he like maybe clearly has not really like fully realized any of this before.
Yeah, because he's a selfish little bastard and doesn't think about other people.
I do also like the effect where they show like Kermit walking home and they're doing that doo doo doo, and you can tell they're on like a
Yeah.
rotating like street,
Yeah.
but like yeah, it's so great. Also,
Uh,
he has cool pants.
but the Ghost of Christmas Present can envision a future with uh a chair and a crutch without an owner, an empty chair and a crutch without an owner. It's like, oof. So, check in for stave 3 because the carol is divided into staves, right? So the Ghost of Christmas Present takes him to a market of people. He also takes him to a mine, at a mine. We see ship workers, a lighthouse. It could be the one that Blaine cheated
Oh
on
my
Kurt
God.
with the profile picture of a lighthouse. We don't know.
This like part when I read it first in high school, I was just like, wow, we're seeing a lot of things, dude.
Yeah, because he's showing that even in unlikely places, even grumpy people are a little more cheerful today. Maybe it's Grumpy the Dwarf in the mine, but they're remembering a song. They're like, oh, remember this song? It's just like it's a little bit brighter for everybody. Um, he has a torch of Christmas cheer, singing loud for all to hear, that he blesses the poor. When people are fighting, he just sprinkles them with it and they fight a little less. Uh, and he shows the bakeries where the poor people are allowed to, like, after the bakers have done their baking, they let various poor people in the community bake their dinners there. And Scrooge is like, ha, I gotcha. He's like, how come your lot are trying to close the bakeries on the seventh day, which is the one, like, then these people can't eat that day? And referencing a political thing that was going on where people wanted those bakeries closed on Sundays. So they didn't want the people to have access to it, or that would be an unintended side effect. And the ghost is like, you know what? People claim to speak for me and my kind, but don't believe them. Like people are claiming to speak for me, but they don't. Um, very, very interesting.
He knew about some politicians.
Yeah, it's like interesting. He's like, those people claim to speak for me, but they don't. Uh, We also go to Fred's house. Fred is like just like Anna in Frozen. I'm gonna keep knocking on that door. Like he rejects me every year, and like, why do you try? He's like, I'm his only family. I'm gonna keep checking in on him. And Scrooge thinks the joke dragging him is funny. He's not disheartened. He's like,
Huh.
that's pretty good. And he's enjoying the games. And Fred reiterates that, at the end of the day, I just wish for Scrooge to have a Merry Christmas and I wish he would come.
Hmm.
So Scrooge is like, yeah, I really, he's like, oh, can I stay one more game, one more game? But they check out Bob Cratchit's house. We see this humble meal, a humble pudding, a humble turkey. They're all happy. We see Martha, the oldest daughter, who is an apprentice at a mill, is
Hmm.
there, and she's surprised. They like do a fake surprise where they pretend she couldn't make it, and then she surprises Bob. And there's two little ones, and Tiny Tim and Peter, and they say no one would dare mention that it was a meager feast for a family of seven. And Bob still wants to toast to Scrooge, and they still don't like it. They're still like, oh,
Hmm.
Scrooge. We get the vision of Tiny Tim's potential impending death. But before the ghost of Christmas present leaves, as he's graying, he shows Scrooge two hungry children, the personifications of want and ignorance. And that ignorance is even more dangerous than want, because want can be satiated, but ignorance will destroy. So,
Predicted podcasters. Like not us, but like
uh,
the ones that indoctrinate kids.
yeah. So Christmas future.
The
He's
Dementor.
the
Yes.
Dementor. He's very ring wraith coated. He's very into Evanescence. There's a
Hmm.
big cloak.
It's
Uh,
bad when Gonzo and Rizzo are like, bye.
yeah, like we'll
Mm.
leave you to deal with
This,
this.
I think that's why I didn't like this part of the movie as a kid.
Mm.
Because Gonzo and Rizzo.
Yeah,
There's no levity.
but I do also feel like that's on purpose because you
It's supposed to
have
be
to,
dark.
yeah, and you have to kind of like see him be like, all right, I'm gonna make this decision.
Yeah. So the Ghost of Christmas Future is like, okay, let me take you to this creepy meeting of shady Muppets.
Helena
Uh,
Bonham Carter Muppet.
The bottom Carter Muppet is like, oh, I found his sheet still warm. And so they're all like selling things they like stole from this dead guy's house. And you see these pig businessmen like, are you going to the funeral? Only if lunch is served. And so he's like, oh, who's this unhappy man? And the ghost is like, I'm not telling you. Who's to say? We see the Cratchits. We see that Tiny Tim is dead. Miss Piggy Cratchit is weeping. And they're all like, oh, I got him a spot. It's very green.
Ducks
He
on
can
the
go there.
river.
He can see the ducks on the river. He loved watching the ducks. It is pretty devastating.
Also, I feel like when he says it would have done me good, I've seen how green the place is, and it's Kermit.
Oh. uh, and it's very sad. It's very affecting. So Scrooge is like, oh, this is really sad. And he's like, show me comfort. And the spirit is like, actually, here's your tombstone. He's like, before I look, promise me that like this isn't necessarily like that things can change.
Yeah, like
Why
this
would
isn't the actual future. This is what could be the future.
yeah. Like why
If you
show me
deny
this?
healthcare.
Yeah. Why show me this if I can change? Like there's gotta be it can be undone. Is he like me a free will stan or is he a fate girly? They see the tomb labeled Scrooge and
Insert Scrooge.
insert Scrooge. We used to have this green bucket, and it does not say TIS. I guess we were just insane on Christmas candy, and we thought it said
There's a lot of
TIS.
things where I'm like, I sounded like a high person, but was had like just literally eaten too much chocolate.
And we would have it was like one of our Christmas decoration bins. And there's this big gold Santa in it,
You kind of would like lay him in there
and so
around surrounded by like snow globes. Like they
and
were
so
his like
his
possessions, like
loot,
ancient Egypt. Yeah.
yeah. And we were like, oh, TIS tomb, insert
Insert
Santa.
Santa.
And then we kept all the Christmas decor in this like storage unit under the stairs. It just
So it's
became
like a
like
Santa tomb. He gets resurrected every year, like Jesus.
Yeah, we call it the Santa
We're
tomb.
creating lore.
And it just became our like just the casual, oh, where'd you leave that? Oh, the Santa tomb.
Hmm. Yeah, like that. Our
Amazing.
mom started saying it too. Like,
Uh so he is like, I promise to keep Christmas, like I will make a change, like I will be better. He's like, the reason is you. I'm gonna be a better person. And who can say if I've been changed for the better, but I've been changed for good. And he collapses and wakes up in his bedroom and he's like, what day is it? What is it? He asks the bunny. The bunny's like, oh, it's
oh,
Christmas.
me, sir?
Yeah, he's like, it's Christmas Day. He's like, oh, I haven't missed it. The spirits can do anything. They did it all in one night. And the bunny's like,
Cool. Sure,
okay.
guy. Sure, Grandpa.
Sure.
I do also like what I do feel like the parallelism of like when it's like the bed was his own, the bedpost was his own, the room was his own when he wakes up, which is
Yeah.
also from the book, but like there's a lot of like repetition and like the way that the language is in the text, and I feel like that's why it works so well because like we like that rhythm.
Yeah.
My grandma, what big ears you have.
Hmm.
So, quick check-in. The businessman saying we'll only go if there's lunch. That's from the book. It
Which
fits.
is so funny. The business lunch pigs.
Well,
Uh,
and that's also really interesting because it's also in the movie a sort of callback to earlier. Those men are like, "Oh yes, that was a wonderful breakfast. Well, now what should we do? Let's go get lunch." Like that's like,
Their
yeah, it's
job,
like,
they just go around eating food at things.
yeah. I mean, listen, same. But yeah, I was like, so now you're saying that it's from the book, and I was like, oh, so they planted that earlier, so it was also a callback. Wow,
And the
this movie's
payoff, Hannah.
genius.
Plan
Plan
and
payoff.
payoff. Like that
I
song in the
mean,
Legally Blonde musical that you blacked out for.
there is a
Yeah.
lot of rule of three happening because I wrote down rule of three window falling because like the window opens and they fall from the window like three times in this
Oh, yeah.
movie.
In the book, we get the people stealing the stuff and like people literally stealing things off his corpse and selling it. And they're like, oh, you're so bad, girl. The ghost shows him the corpse and is like, look at it. And he's like, no, no, but show me someone who has any emotion connected to this. And he's like, yeah. He takes him to a poor family who is saved because Scrooge is dead, so they will no longer be evicted and they have more time to get their financial situation together. So this person who's dead, the only positive impact is this family who's happy and like they feel bad. Like the woman's like, "Oh, I feel bad," but it's like, but they're
This is
relieved.
literally the health insurance CEO. Like,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like it's very relevant to it's like a lot of these people's impact will be, they caused a lot of suffering and people will be relieved when they won't be there. Unfortunately, now the systems are so big, it's not one person.
Yeah.
You
mhm.
know, we see the Cratchits mourning Tiny Tim and the reference to like a green place. And we see the grave, Scrooge begs to change his ways. So again, like this is a very close adaptation. And so back to the movie, Scrooge is like, I gotta enjoy Christmas. I'm gonna keep it in the past, the present, and the future. It's a
Faith and
beautiful
hope and
day.
charity.
Yeah, and he sees, speaking of charity, he sees Beaker and Bunsen, and he's like, they're scared of him, and he's like, I'm here to, let me donate this much. And this is a detail in the book where they don't say how much, but he whispers to the person, and they're like, so much. He's like, yeah, and I'm gonna be a repeat giver.
Yeah.
Unlike, yeah, so Beaker gives him the scarf. He's like, oh,
A gift for me.
and he's so happy with the little scarf.
Yeah. And also like he tells the bunny to like go get the prize turkey that's at the
Yeah.
butcher or
The one as
whatever.
big as me. I do also think because I wrote down like when he gets the scarf from Beaker, I'm like, this should have gotten him an Oscar.
He's so touched by that scarf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Top two emotional scenes in a movie, that and then in Return of the King when Aragorn says, "My friends, you bow to no one."
Similar
Also, something
energy.
that's important to note that might get lost in a modern audience is that at that time in Victorian London, turkey was actually considered like an exotic meat. It was not something that was generally eaten the way we do.
Because it's
Because
from the New World.
yeah, they typically ate goose. So to eat a
Right.
turkey was a very expensive, it was from the New World. So it was this very expensive act of generosity to afford a turkey. So
Hmm.
that's an I think is sometimes lost because we just
Yeah.
Yeah.
we see the turkey all of the time. But at that time, that food would have been uh, a huge expression of generosity for Scrooge to
Mhm.
do.
Yeah,
Uh,
I didn't even think about that.
I didn't either. And we get the song, a grateful prayer and a thankful heart. Just like we're grateful for that fun fact about geese and turkey.
He's like dancing.
Yeah, it's what a little pleasant bop.
Oh, and there's a fun in joke in that scene where they're going through that. Do you know that about one of the names on the buildings?
No.
There it says Mickle Whites on one of the buildings. That is Michael Caine's real name. His real name is Maurice Micklewhite, and he changed it to Michael
Um,
Caine based upon he saw the Caine Mutiny on a billboard, and he changed his name to Michael Caine. So that's a fun little in joke that
It's
bears
cute.
no importance on the movie, but it's fun if you nonetheless know about that. No,
Yeah.
I did clock that and I was like, what a weird name.
yeah,
And then didn't think about it. Wow, interesting.
that's his
I do
real
like
name.
in this montage, like the callbacks to everybody. Like he sees his old professor and then also Fozziewig.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like
the
Yeah.
when he
horn.
shakes the present with the horn.
Yeah.
And cheese is for Mises. They get their cheese.
Yep.
Yeah.
Although it always bothered me at the end that Fred's wife isn't there
Oh, at the
when
final
yeah
table.
when they're
Yeah.
eating. I
And it
always
always bothers me
I
too.
always thought, where is she?
Never noticed it.
Yeah, why is
Yeah.
she not
Wow.
there?
Yeah,
Is
because
she not in the background
No, she's not in
somewhere?
the scene.
Because like he's like over here somewhere as we
yeah.
pan out or
But
zoom
yeah,
out.
not
Yeah,
her.
interesting.
No,
But
Hmm.
She wasn't
she,
available that day, I
she was
guess.
yeah.
busy.
Yeah.
She had work to do.
Yeah, she got a job as a young woman at party,
Yeah,
.
she was in the scene with me.
Yeah. He does visit Freddie and her and give them gifts. And
Mhm.
then he goes to the Cratchit's house and he's like, Bob, where are you?
And
And
Yeah.
he's like, I'm gonna do this whole act, and he's like excited to do this whole like bit, which I
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
do
He's like,
love.
this is gonna kill. Like
and
it
In
could
some ad
cause a heart attack.
in some adaptations, that doesn't happen at the Cratchit house. In most adaptations, he comes in the day after Christmas to Scrooge's office, and that whole
yeah,
Hmm.
scene plays out there.
because that's what happens in the book.
Yeah, that's how most of the time it
Oh.
happens.
But I think this also happens in like the Mickey Mouse one, which I had a
Hmm.
book of it. I don't think I've ever watched the full Mickey
I've
Mouse.
never
No,
watched it, and
I
some
think
people
you're
try
right.
to be like, I'm not like the other girls. I like Mickey Mouse Christmas Carol, and I'm like,
No, I gotta
whatever.
tell you that version of it is beautifully animated, but it's much too short. It's only about 20 minutes, and they cram in it. It's
Interesting.
not. It's a big disappointment if you actually watch it. So
Not a lot of substance, is what you're
no,
saying.
it's not a lot of substance.
I
So,
do like when Miss Piggy's like, I'm gonna raise you off the right off the
Oh
pavement.
yeah. She is ready to just
yeah,
literally
she's
like
like,
murder him on her
yeah.
doorstep. And he's like, I'm gonna raise your salary. And she goes, oh, well, come on in.
Well,
Oh,
my favorite
yeah.
physical gag in the movie is earlier on when they go to the Cratchit house and the two girls run to Kermit to hug him and throw him up against the door. That part
Uh-huh.
makes me laugh out loud every single time I see that movie.
And
There's
then,
also,
and she's all kissy, and he's like, like picky in front of the kids.
yes, yes. In that moment, there's a squeak. And I was
Yeah,
like,
and
what
she's like,
squeaks?
woohoo!
I
Oh,
was
you
like,
know,
what is
Hannah.
squeaking?
You know.
But he's like, oh, well, you're supposed to come in. He's like, no, we agreed. He's like, excuse me, would I agree to that? And she's like, she's not having any of it. She's
Uh-uh.
like, no, not in my
Like, you know
house,
what?
not on my watch. Uh,
There
and
was one
he's,
time someone asked me to describe like what is a femme lesbian, and I was like Miss Piggy. Because like her and Kermit have like femme mask dynamic. Like
Mhm.
he's just like
Cullen,
no, and she's
dead.
like I'm gonna punch him, and it's fine.
yeah. And so he's like, oh, actually, I'm raising your rent. or your not your rent,
Your salary.
your salary,
And
and
I'm going to pay your mortgage.
mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And so they're thrilled. They have this wonderful feast, and Tiny Tim says, "God bless us, everyone." And he does not die, as
Who
Gonzo
did
points
not
out.
die. He
They
very emphatically says it.
because Scrooge becomes a second father to him. So when people can afford living and to pay the doctor, sick kids don't always die.
Mm,
And then they sing "The Love We Found." And we zoom out over London. We see the lobsters in the window, you know.
yeah.
Wicked Duck.
And you know, that's London for you. That's A Christmas Carol. And Gonzo says goodbye, you know.
If you like
And
that, you should read the book.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a plug for the book.
look for the book. Shout out, not sponsor, not ad from Dickens. So quick check-in, because again, this is the ending is basically the same, you know, except in the book he does spend the day with Fred.
Mm,
Because there's a lot more, I think there's more emphasis on like the family disconnection that's
right.
happening. And so when Bob comes in the next day, he gives him a raise, becomes a father to Tiny Tim, living a life of compassion and generosity. It kept Christmas well, may that be said of all of us.
And it did also say in the book, he had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle. I was like,
Nice.
oh well, Dickens. Okay.
Went straight edge. Nice.
Uh, so yeah, that's Muppet Christmas Carol. That's probably I mean, I'm sure we might touch a Christmas Carol adaptation at some point, but I feel like this is to me, this is the one to cover.
I do feel like part of the reason why it also like works is because it was like the first one that they did after Jim Henson's death, and I'm like, something about it.
Yeah. You know, so I did choose to stick with this over Hot Frosty. You know, and I feel like there's so many Christmas
Thank you.
movies
I appreciate that.
yeah,
Which I
I
some
didn't
do.
realize when I first saw the ad for that. I was like, why, where do I know this guy from? And he's
Schitt's
the
Creek.
veterinarian in Schitt's Creek. He looks so different.
Yeah,
Interesting.
there's so many Christmas movies that we have to cover, and I feel like every time it gets to the holiday season, we're like so tired. And that's also
Yeah.
when a lot of
Valid.
like big budget like movies that we also need to cover come out. So the
I'd rather
Christmas,
cover something that's like not super popular at the moment for the holidays because it's like I'm probably gonna watch like Elf. I'm gonna watch, like some like staples. And so it's like
uh,
if we can watch something like I would not have watched the the ones that we did last year
oh,
because
the
they
Rankin
freaked me
Bass,
out.
yeah.
Um,
Oh,
but
I was like, you mean
like
that's not annual watching for everyone?
no. It
Are you
that
saying
was
to me, Hannah, you don't like the Rankin Bass?
we
Because I'm
gotta move
about to
on.
hang up on you.
We gotta
I'm
move
We
about to
have
hang
a
up
on.
on
whole
you.
episode on it
Listen,
that you
T,
can
listen to
listen.
that episode and then come talk to
I
me.
can't.
Okay, we
If you
have
say,
such good points.
I don't want to hear it. I
Listen,
refuse.
you have to listen to the episode, then call
Yeah,
me. Okay?
there's theories about Santa replacement happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, so back to the movie at hand. We usually ask who do we root for our protagonist, what do we think of our antagonist. Our protagonist and antagonist is the same guy, Michael Caine Scrooge.
Yeah. He's his own antagonist.
Yeah.
Because it's man versus self.
It's no surprise to me. I am my own worst enemy.
I
I
mean,
didn't mean to call you that.
uh, I do feel like not a song that I think want to think about. You do root for him, like once he starts changing, you're like, yeah. And I think part of that is Michael Caine's acting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
He's
think
fantastic.
what also I like about Christmas Carol is as a this movie and as a property is that it doesn't be like, well, you know, her mom was killed by Dalmatians. You should feel kind of bad for her. You know, it's
Right.
like yeah, you can feel bad for Scrooge. You can see what he went through, like, because everyone has gone through stuff, but it doesn't absolve him of like, you are such a bad person that if you died, the only positive feeling would be people happy that you're gone because they're not going to get evicted. You know,
And
like,
Yeah.
You
It is like it's still like the weight of his actions, and it's like an active choice at the end to choose to do good. That it's still like an
Yeah.
active choice for both.
And I
yeah.
think we are also rooting for this major capitalist dude to give his wealth and share his wealth as we want all rich people to do. We want them, to at least pay their share, but like if they can be generous in a uh unselfish way, which is what he ends up doing at the end. He's like, I just want to do this so I can connect with the world. He's not trying to gain something back except for just
Yeah.
community, which is like, that's cool. I
And
support
I
that.
think that's like one of the emphasis of this movie is community.
Yeah.
And like I think that's also one of the reasons why like this and like Muppets and Hobbits are like this for me because they both represent that value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe it's also why this works well as a Muppet adaptation because the Muppets are very much like we all get together and put on a show, like, and we're all here and we're all weird and different, but we're all connected, And so I think there is when you have the scene that Hannah's at right now, you
Hmm.
have a sense of space of all these characters being filled up. They're not just extras; they're like little weirdos.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
What's
also
also
wrote down that like I do think as well with both like I guess the Muppets because I was thinking of that scene in Lord of the Rings. They're both like really good examples of like soft masculinity that you can be emotional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's also interesting about this and how they're cast is that they're cast just like as if they were regular actors. Like
Yeah.
when Kermit appears for the first time in the movie, he's just in the background. There's no
Mhm.
major reveal of Kermit. There's no
Yeah.
major reveal of Piggy. They're treated as if they're just actors in the movie, as
yes,
though they're human actors. And that
Yeah.
adds that very unique aspect to this film that you accept the fact that this is a pig and that this is a frog, and yet that you are willing to go down certain emotional roads with them because they're treated both by Michael Caine's performance, but also by the film itself, as if they're just actors in the scene, and you accept.
yeah. And
With
that's one of
like
my
the opening
favorite.
credits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
That's one of my
right.
favorite Hollywood conceits is like when, I mean, well, it's not a conceit because it's real. Like when Miss Piggy goes on a talk show and
Right.
they don't treat her like she's a puppet because she's a star and they talk to her like she's a star.
Mhm.
It's like everyone just kind of accepts that these are performers, you
Yeah.
know?
Like whenever you hear interviews of people talking about like when they've interacted with like the Muppets or been on Sesame Street, because they're like they tell you like don't look at the puppeteer. And I think this was like an interview I saw with Brett Goldstein talking about like being on Sesame Street, and he's like, "Well, yeah, you're not going to look at that guy. Like, I'm talking to Oscar," and he was just like, "Being with the Muppets was the best day of my life," and he's like, and then you have to go on living your normal life, and you're just like, I want to go back to be with the Muppets.
There was a behind the scenes interview on YouTube for a long time, but they've taken it down. That was Frank Oz, Jim Henson's, and the designer. I can't remember his name of the Muppets. And Frank Oz has Miss Piggy, and he starts to do Miss Piggy, and there's this weird moment where you think, wait a minute, I'm looking at Miss Piggy, imagining she's a real thing, and then you realize, wait a minute, you totally ignore that Frank Oz's lips are moving. You just accept
Hmm.
that that's a real entity there. It's this very strange magical thing that happens with with the Muppets, even when you see the people performing them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's sort of like they like you it's not ventriloquism or of any sort. Like
Yeah,
they're not trying to trick you, but the creation and the lifelikeness of these characters that they've created is just so powerful. That is really interesting. I should try to find that video if we
yeah.
can.
So there's also an interview with Jim Henson and Kermit on Johnny Carson, and Carson starts to talk to Kermit, and you sort of just accept, yeah. I mean, you see Jim Henson's mouth moving. There's
Uh-huh.
no try attempt to hide it. It's not a ventriloquist, but you just sort of accept that, yeah, well, Kermit happens to have a guy's hand up him, and you you just sort of go with
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
mean, who doesn't?
it.
Yeah. I was
I
I was
I
also
also think that like Miss Piggy, the things that I've seen her in, she's like what I know of her is like very, very like over the top theatrical. We were talking earlier that like she's shading Martha Stewart to her face. But like Miss Piggy is acting. She is Miss Piggy, but she is also an actor because she is not playing like the same level. Like it's very
She's much more
not,
subdued as Mrs.
She
Cratchit
is.
than she would be.
yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. So it's
Yes.
like it's that other level that like not only is she like they're treating her like an actor, like she is being an actor too. It's
The only
fascinating.
one playing themselves is Rizzo. That's what
Yeah.
Rizzo the Rat as
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah. Wow. So, Hannah, before we get to our big question, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Would this inspire you to watch anything of other Muppets? Like how are you Muppet pilled now? Like where are you with the Muppets after watching this movie?
Okay, I don't know if I would say I'm Muppet pilled, but I think I've always had an appreciation for the Muppets as an institution.
Mm,
Uh, because from what I have, seen like interviews that like it is like its own thing, and I respected that. But I think like my perception has definitely changed because of this movie. That like I thought it was gonna be like goofy puppet antics and then humans. And I know some of them are like that, but like this is like shows the quality of the storytelling and the capabilities that they have when mixing both humans and Muppets. So yeah, I mean I really do want to watch I almost said Treasure Island, right?
Yeah.
I want to watch that one because I know I've heard T talk about it, and that's the one I think I've heard people talk about the most. Is that like you have to see this one.
Well,
I
that
mean,
one is
Perhaps
my
it's also Tim Curry.
that's my favorite one of all these. That's the one that I was genuinely obsessed with. But I will concede that it's not quite as good of an adapt. They don't do exactly what they do in this movie. In that movie,
no.
it's more it's not as serious an adaptation. And I
Well,
I
I
could
feel like
quote
it's
you
because
the
it's
entire
pirates.
film. Huh?
Because it's piratey. I also know that like some of the instrumentation and like the music for that Hans Zimmer also used when he was doing the soundtrack for Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right.
Like that movie, I feel like
Fun.
is very similar to the first Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes.
Like
Mm.
when they're like picking the crew in Pirates of the Caribbean, very similar energy to when they're doing like the roll call in Muppet
Yes.
Treasure
And I
Island.
could tell you the whole roll call scene. I have that memorized. I've watched that literally thousands of times. But it's worth mentioning also that the songwriter of Muppet Christmas Carol was Paul Williams, who was a highly credentialed writer of various songs. And he also, I think he did the original, he did, oh, Rainbow Connection. He wrote the
Hmm.
original Rainbow Connection. And it's hard, as much as I love the music in Treasure Island, it's hard pressed to beat the maturity of the lyrics in Christmas Carol.
yeah.
I
You
do
should
also
watch
feel
something
like
else that has a Muppet in it and a Hannah. I mean,
And
I
then
it's
think
what else would we recommend?
I
okay,
would
so the
Treasure
original
Island.
Muppet movie,
yes,
the original Muppet movie is good, but like it's I also watched that when I was a very small child, so I've imprinted on it, and it's
right.
definitely like weirder to see
Yeah, I'm trying to
than
think
some
of
of the
like
other
for
ones.
That's
Hannah.
that's the hard thing is
Also,
I can't think of a time where I didn't know the Muppets that I can't be objective uh,
That's the
I do
thing.
also
about it.
like the Jason Segel Muppet movie, like the 2011
Okay.
Muppets.
Yeah,
Um,
that's worthwhile.
the second one, the movie is just okay, but the music, like there's like one song with Celine Dion in it, and it just hits. And I think part of the reason why the Jason Segel one and that one like at least musically like work so well is because they got Brett McKenzie, and it's like who is there to understand like the humor of the Muppets but like one of the Flight of the Conchords. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's why the music like it's so funny and but it also like it's good music and it works.
Yeah, I think
But like a very different tone than this.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
yeah.
it's much sweeter in how they dealt with the Disney Muppets are not quite the same Muppets as
yeah.
the Jim Henson. There's a difference, but I you have to watch at least the original Muppet
I
movie.
think yeah, the original maybe Muppet Takes Manhattan. I do
Hmm.
remember liking that one. And then I think Muppet Treasure Island. I
People's
mean,
is people's.
T and I used to sing that song, I feel like all the time.
Which one?
The one
Love.
there's gotta be something
I
Better.
look
better.
around here
You're
and I
right, I
I
want
want
to
want
to.
to
cry.
Because that'd be
cry.
us during
It
like
looks like
finals
the world
week.
is passing me
Maybe.
by,
I
and I
mean,
just can't help.
my
Sorry, Hannah.
when our cousins were little and I watched them, that was like the bedtime song that was often requested by our cousin Emily. She wanted me to sing that because I would do like a fake like high voice like Jim Hawkins, um, and I would do the Gonzo and Rizzo voices for them. I also the song from that movie, The Professional Pirate. I didn't do
Mhm.
it because I was on leave at the beginning of the school year, but like in my sophomore English, I'll show that as an example, and we look at like how does he persuade his audience
Right.
as to like why you should be a pirate and like what strategies does he use, what does he point out?
Well, that's a good idea. Yeah. Well, that movie you have to watch just for Tim Curry, because
Right.
Tim
Yeah.
Curry, that was my introduction to my obsession with Tim Curry, that movie. And
It was
like,
like that in Fern Gully for
yeah, and
me.
like was yeah, because he like was said earlier, he does kind of a different take. If Michael Caine, like Kate said, he Michael Caine is trying to treat the Muppets like they're actors. Tim Curry is a Muppet trying to like be with the Muppets, and it's a very interesting take on it. And I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a great one. Um,
So the short answer is yes, I would watch another one. I do recognize that obviously this one is I, I don't want to say highbrow, but it's the only thing I can think of is because of the source material it's coming from.
Yeah,
Is it like this is like an older literature, you know?
yeah.
I
So
do also think it's funny that everyone is always like, let's do a what Muppet adaptation of this or whatever. And it's like the really only adaptations are like this, Muppet Treasure Island, and then that one like fairy tale one that we had where there was like the three Elvis and the shoemaker and
Oh yeah, they've
like
had
the
it because
Rumpelstiltskin gotta get that name.
yeah,
yeah, and
Um,
yeah.
there's Muppet Wizard of Oz, which
Oh,
I
mhm.
was
I
famously
saw
bad.
I
Yeah,
saw a clip of it when I was seeing Wicked or was Wicked, I think
Wicked,
it was.
yeah,
And I was like, oh my God, they're torturing Ashanti. What's going on? And that's when I'm like, oh, the Muppets. Like
yeah, no,
that seems
That was Muppets in the hand
crazy.
of somebody who didn't know what they were doing.
yeah. That's not.
Yeah.
Don't judge the Muppets by that one.
might be the
No.
worst.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. I don't really
Yeah,
care for Muppets from Space.
No, I tried rewatching it when I was recovering from surgery back in August, and like, can't remember if you were there, Cullen. I didn't
I
finish
was there
watching
for the
it.
beginning. I think I left. I was kind
I
of like,
I
watched
took a
okay,
it
nap.
when
I
I
mostly
was
wanted to
recovering from
watch it
dental
because of the
surgery.
scene where he's like, "Did your cereal also tell you that you need help?"
Yeah,
Like, and I think it was just like because Gonzo is like one of my favorite characters, and I feel like as a non-binary person, Gonzo queer icon because he's like, I'm a whatever. I something about that I feel like just like fundamentally didn't like really understand who
yeah.
Gonzo is because they're like, we need to find out where he's from, but like Gonzo's very happy with himself.
That
He's
movie,
very much like
yeah,
very this is who I am and that's okay.
that movie originally was supposed to be called Muppets in Space, and the original plot was that Kermit is abducted by aliens who are fans of the Muppet Show, and they're a planet of alien frogs, and they take Kermit back
Like
to the
Galaxy Quest.
yeah,
Yes.
and the Muppets have to go rescue him, and I think they changed it sort of at the last minute. That's one of those the original like four or five. That one you don't want to. And
Is
there's
that why also there was like the jelly jars that had them because they were all in like space gear because will always save those and use them as glasses and I remember we had the Miss
yes,
Piggy one.
yes. If you go
Mm.
on Muppets Wikia, they have a whole page on the Muppet in space jelly jars. It's very true.
A website that he has favorited on his favorites bar in his
I have
browser.
next to my marthastewart.com, inagarten.com, the Muppets Wikia is right beneath. And the Golden Girls Wikia is right down
Uh-huh.
beneath that too.
yeah. So I guess that leads us to our big question. Was that your fantasy?
Mm.
Kate, let's start with you.
Well, I think we know the answer is yes.
Yeah.
I mean, also because like I was thinking about this and I was thinking about like redemption arc for terrible people in capitalism and like why it works here. And part of that is because of Michael Caine, but also it's because like we see that Scrooge is like, hey, I have all of these bad things that happened to me. I made bad choices. I acknowledge that, and now I'm gonna make good choices. Versus like another Christmas movie, like It's a Wonderful Life, where at the end, like Mr. Potter doesn't get a redemption. Because it's not that's not really what the story is about, but it's kind of like he's gonna continue to be awful. I feel like it works also because like Scrooge is like just one guy in like this town and like he is a landlord and like that's gonna affect like the people in the area. So it like comes back to like the community closer to home. And I'm like, I don't need Elon Musk to be redeemed. I think he's gonna continue to be a terrible person. And I
Mhm.
think it's more of like small, small scale. It will work,
Yeah.
but I don't think big scale. It's
I
not like we
mean,
have like a redemption arc for like I don't know, the Queen or something.
Queen, oh, Queen, Queen Victoria, giving that hemophilia gene across Europe. T, was that your fantasy?
Oh, that's my fantasy, Colin. I've seen literally every adaptation of A Christmas Carol from the 1951 version with Alastair Sim to the 1990s Ms. Scrooge with Cicely Tyson. And this version I love, not because even if you had the Muppets taken out, you have the real fidelity to the original text, and you sense a real respect for the original work that some of the adaptations really don't have, particularly the adaptations that add um, music to them. There's one with Albert Finney called Scrooge, where they don't go to the depths that Dickens dealt with. They really lighten it up. And in this film, it's amazing how they really retain a lot of the dark themes and serious adult themes while still melding in the themes of a children's story that they can enjoy that. So, I again, I can't be objective about this because I love it so much. But even if I didn't love it, I'm drawn to it because of its respect for the original writer's themes and ideas. Uh, and I also love a redemption arc. I love stories where things are depressing and things don't work out and there's heartbreak. I love that. So this story is great for me with that. And again, the acting of Michael Caine in this movie is tremendous. Forget if it's a Muppet movie. His performance as Scrooge ranks up there with all the other actors who played Scrooge in other adaptations. He's in the top three or four of his performance. So for that alone, absolutely my fantasy.
I also think I meant to say this, but like Gonzo's narration and again like the attention to like the original text and like the way he delivers the lines too. I'm like, this is what God and Charles Dickens intended. Like for Gonzo to be saying like, and to he kept Christmas well and made that be said of all of us.
Yeah,
I
he
think
he
if
delivers
Charles
it very
Dickens
well.
came back and he saw this movie, he'd say, you know what? Yeah, I like this. This is really good. At
Yeah.
least I like to think that in my head canon.
Anytime I think about like most like Shakespeare adaptations, I'm like, he would probably be like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 Things I Hate About You. This is great. Yeah. Hannah, was that your fantasy?
Uh, I mean, living in Victoria in London, no, not at all.
But with
Uh,
Muppets.
Not even with Muppets. Again, I'm
Okay.
thinking of the lack of a toilet situation. Um, and running water. But no,
But
I
cool
think
pants.
but those pants though. Yeah, no, I think that like this is my fantasy in that I like this movie a lot. I think like this would be one like I would keep coming back to every Christmas. Or at least put it in like the rotation because I don't know if I even really like any Christmas Carol adaptations. I can't think of any that I really like. Oh, here we go, the rolling of the eyes. But I think it's because like I don't know, maybe because it is like kind of depressing for a lot of it, and then it takes a little while for you to get to the part where you're like, oh yes, happy Christmas. And I'm not really like I think that's also why I'm not really a big fan of It's a Wonderful Life is because like it's
Yeah.
depressing and it takes a while to get to every time a dog sees an angel gets its wings,
That's
like
right. That's right.
That's right. Merry
oh
Christmas.
my God, that was such a good impression.
Hi, it's me, Jimmy
Jimmy Stewart,
Stewart.
can you
Yeah.
back from the grave? But yeah, I think that like this movie, I think I was kind of like stunned by it when I was watching it last night. I was like, I wasn't expecting this. So yeah, this was my fantasy, really good. Again, I reiterate, Michael Caine was fantastic. All of the Muppets performance was also very, very good because they're doing their own thing. It's very Muppety, but it is also blended in this world. It doesn't feel like a huge juxtaposition in like a negative way. Like it's interesting. So yeah.
I mean, my fantasy is always when I show Hannah a movie that I like that she hasn't seen or doesn't know very well, and that she likes it, appreciates it. And it's happened a lot on this show. We can't win them
Yay.
all. The Toes of Matanui, weren't her fave, but I'm glad you
No.
like this one.
It's a bit of a hard
Listen,
sell.
thank you. Thank
Not
you,
just because
Kate.
they're
I
plastic.
appreciate it.
Yeah. But as it's my fantasy, this movie, I'm gonna say yes in both senses. I like this movie. This is my favorite Christmas Carol adaptation. And it really scratches that itch. I baked gingerbread and decorated gingerbread while watching it, and so just perfect Christmassy vibes. And as someone who, we talked about this, I think a lot about good and evil and whether I'm being a good person. I would love ghosts explicitly dragging me and telling me how to improve. I would like that direct feedback from an unbiased source. Uh, that'd be it'd be terrifying, and like horrifying and like a horrific
Especially the past
experience.
one.
Yeah, that'd
Yeah.
be really rough. I would not necessarily want to see it, but
Oh, I was
I
No,
thinking
because
of the ghost herself, the puppet.
oh no,
that
I'm just
too,
thinking of
yes.
like my choices. Like, do I want to see all
Oh
of
yeah.
them? But
No.
I
But
at the end
don't
of the
you
day,
hate that feeling of when you like remember like something you did, either it was like something like bad or you were mean
mhm.
and you're like, or like something embarrassing, that feeling is just,
It's the same
Yeah.
feeling of like in the Gwyneth Paltrow adaptation of Emma when Mr. Knightley is like, badly done, Emma, badly done. And you're just like, he
Yeah,
devastated.
but Scrooge did a lot of bad things, and the ghost showed him the key one. So it would be good to know like your key feedback focal points, how to
uh-huh,
improve as a person. I want
Yeah.
like, how good am
life.
I? Yeah, I think that's terrifying, but
Well,
we
I
get to
don't know. I
know.
feel like the Pope pretty much told you when he canceled your first baptism.
Oh,
Drew,
dude,
take a shot.
take a
Oh
shot.
I
God.
mentioned it.
I was gonna say, I feel like it also makes me think of that one. I think is it in Dawn Treader where Lucy like gets that magic book and like sees her like friends or like it's like you're not meant to see some of these things.
Yeah,
And someone's
yeah.
like, you don't need to.
Yes, my dark bargain I would make with a witch is I want to know everyone who's ever had a crush
Had a
on
crush on
me,
you? Yeah, I
thought
remember
about
this.
me romantically, sexually, in any way. I want to know everyone. I want the full list. I want all the details. It'd be
It's
bad to
Libra
know.
coded.
I shouldn't know. It's not good to know, but I think there'd be plot twists in it.
Mm.
And I think
I'm
there'd be
like,
some disturbing ones, but I think there'd be some fun ones too.
I
So
don't want to know because part of me is I'm like, well, but I basically already could know if I just really think about it
but
because I
you
think most people like me.
confidence. That's that
Look at
Gonzo
that.
confidence right there.
That Gonzo confidence.
Uh, so I guess is there anything you want to confidently plug as Gonzo? Is there anything that you're promoting as a teacher donation wise?
Well, uh, a couple of my projects just ended without getting their full like donations because I like didn't do the donation window long enough, but I probably will be reposting them soon. So if you follow my Instagram, which is Cal Dadalorian, so it's like Cal Dad DAD, and then Alorian, like Mandalorian, but Dad, and then Cal.
Yeah,
I will
then
usually be posting stuff there. I'll post on my story or like have the link if I am like looking to fundraise because Interesting thing I learned recently is that some of the Title I money that we get can only be for supplemental material. So like that would be like poster paper. What is not supplemental material is like pencils, sticky notes. That's considered a supply and not supplemental. And I'm like, but if we're in Title I and the kids don't have enough money to buy their own pencils, why can't we
You're
just
supplementing.
Yes, there's so many like, and I was talking to the teacher who was like explaining this to me. I was like, this seems so nebulous, and he's like, oh, it totally is. Like he was bringing me poster paper because he saw that I asked for some. He's like, I have extra, I'll bring it to you. But he's like, this is a new thing and it doesn't make sense. I was just like, I just give us pencils. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I think of like this movie and how it's like they just need stuff that are basics. And then I also think of an elf when she's like, but the children love the books. The children need pencils.
Yeah.
So you fundraise through, what's the site called?
Donors choose, and I have a teacher page on there that I don't remember what my name is, but it's I think linked on my Instagram, so
Yeah.
my
And
Instagram is the
we'll
best
put it
place.
in the description too.
T, host of Obscure Obsessions.
Well, it's funny you asked me, Cullen, because yes, I co-host my own podcast with my slightly younger cousin, Nicholas, or Nick, as everyone calls him, except for me and the government. We host Obscure Obsessions, where every episode we discuss a different obscure, lesser-known movie, sometimes TV show. And in the episode, we have these kind of quasi-intellectual discussions about these movies that really no one but the two of us has given any thought of. We think more about these movies than the people who made them think about them. And we either try to advocate for the film and try to persuade the audience to check the movie out, to not that actually some of these movies that you maybe never heard of are actually worth your time. And other times we say, you know what, you really don't want to waste your time with that. We are I had to have him tell me because I'm not so good with this portion of it. We are nearing the end of our fourth season, and our Christmas special comes out on December 20th.
Oh,
And in that episode, myself and my two cousins, I let the other one on occasionally, we each recommend a different obscure, lesser known Christmas movie. So if you're looking to try out a movie you've never seen before, then you should listen to what we have to talk about. I actually recommend uh, an adaptation of A Christmas Carol. I won't tell you which one, you have to
You
listen.
gotta listen.
And we also have our Halloween special and our Thanksgiving special out, where we also, again, the three of us recommend movies that are associated with those particular holidays. Loosely in the case of Thanksgiving, because there's like 4 Thanksgiving movies out there. And starting in January, we have a new round of mini obsessions where we do a kind of quick fire recommendations of obscure movies. And then in April, season 5 will come out, which we've started to record. I think I'm kind of lost on where we are. If you want to listen to us, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I guess wherever else it is that you would find podcasts. And you can follow our what's that called, Instagram, by going to obscure. What is it? Obscure. I have it written. Obscure Podcast, at Obscure Podcast, where you can also find a link to a blog that I occasionally post on, but I've been a little bit too busy with actually real making money on my job, so I haven't had as much time to post on that. But you can find all of that information and check out the various episodes that we have recorded. We've recorded episodes on movies like Grizzly, Skate Town, USA, How the West Was Fun, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, King Kong Lives, Wrongfully Accused. We've even talked about Muppet Treasure Island on an episode in season 1. So if you have a hankering to watch a movie that you're really not all that interested in or have never heard of, perhaps we can change your mind. And that's all I have to say about that, Hannah. And that's the end of my spiel.
wonderful
It's a
spiel.
great spiel.
Thank you.
The
Yeah.
spieliest spiel. Yeah.
Spiel.
Yeah, well, if you are listening on iTunes or Spotify to this podcast, please give us a 5-star review and write in your little comment what you love about the podcast. This helps us climb the charts so we can find more awesome listeners just like you. If you want to follow us on Instagram or TikTok, we are at Not My Fantasy Pod. And if you're on YouTube, hi, hello, you can
Smash that like button.
smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and that notification bell so you get notified anytime we drop a video episode over on YouTube.
And
What's our
comment with
question?
which Muppet would play you.
Ooh, which Muppet would play you just in general
Yeah.
in your
Great question.
Muppet biopic?
In your Muppet biopic, who's
Am I
playing
a
you?
man or am I a Muppet?
Yeah. Yeah, follow us on, I did the thing that I did with Gleeboot where I forgot to share her TikTok for a while and now I'm left out. But TikTok I think might be going away for United States.
Right.
Is it?
I think it's happening. But I might make us a Blue Sky account. I've been exploring Blue Sky
I have
myself.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lyle was like, you guys should make a Blue Sky. I was like, that's up to Cullen. I don't do the social
Yeah.
media.
Yeah. But yeah, and you can also find me on Instagram at Cullen Ever After. And so this is our last episode of the year. Considering the year is almost over. We're gonna go on a little holiday break. We're gonna be observing the holidays, taking some time off.
All of them.
Every holiday.
I'll be watching.
Yeah, Christmas, Epiphany. We're watching Kwanzaa.
Hanukkah starts literally like
On
what?
Christmas.
On
It
Christmas
starts on
at
Christmas.
night.
Yeah. So we're living La Vida
St.
Loca.
Stephen's Day.
I'm going to Ireland on
Boxing
St.
Day.
Lucy's Day, But we're taking a little break, and in the new year, I have some teasers. I think Supernatural Romance Month is coming back. That was fun. That was a time. Monster fucking is so back, baby. Another celebration of Women's History Month with a classic princess. Rach Ziegs. We're on
That
your
movie's
team. We're on
coming
your
out.
side. Yeah. That's the
as far
teasers
as
they'll
we've
give you
gotten.
now. Yeah,
That's
we
as
have
far as we've got.
visions.
Raven.
Vision.
See
Yeah.
into the future.
Yeah.
Raven Simone.
Yeah. Raven Simone.
No wait.
Yeah.
That's a reference I understood.
Yeah. Yeah. But in the meantime, if you care to find us, look to the western sky and check out
Or
our
on all those
our
social
socials.
medias.
Yeah.
Listed.
And whatever holiday you celebrate, happy holidays. May they be filled with peace and light. And let's hope for peace on earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Muppet.
And
Muppets.
Muppets. And Muppets. And a great comeback movie for the Muppets. Put that on your letter to Santa. Bye, everybody.
Bye, listeners.